Welcome to Shock to the Series. Any man can overcome adversity. If you truly want to test a man's character, give him power. Hey guys, welcome to Shock to the Series. This is a new weekly show I'm doing on YouTube where I take a look at a video game series that has unfortunately been more or less discontinued the past couple years. There's been no sign of it, and maybe its maker has moved on. And I look at the games and everything and explain why maybe this series should or maybe it shouldn't come back, and you guys vote towards the end and decide amongst yourselves whether or not it should or should not come back. And the first game series I'm going to look at today is one of my favorites, a PlayStation exclusive series. I am talking about Infamous. This series had 3 major game releases and 2, I think, major kind of side releases. It was Infamous, Infamous 2, and then Infamous Second Son. And then Infamous 2 had a expansion. Don't remember the name of it. It was a vampire-based expansion, though. And Infamous Second Son had a side story, Infamous First Light, that was released only digitally over the PlayStation Shop. So this series saw you initially in the role of Cole McGrath, and you receive this package and you're said to deliver it, and it explodes, giving you electric powers, turning you into what is known as a conduit. And there's a couple conduits at the start, but not a lot. It's a more new thing. It's not as widespread as something like the X Gene or things like that in those types of comics, or quirks in the world of My Hero Academia. It's more rare to see conduits as far as Infamous 1 goes. And you end up making choices that lead you to either being revered as a hero or reviled as a villain. And that also influences the nature of your powers. They're more controlled if you're good, able to bring down more stuff without destroying other things. If you go the evil route, you glow red and you get more destructive powers, so you can just make big explosions and spectacular things like that. Infamous 2 more expanded on this idea by introducing different kind of elements to your powers. So if you went good, I believe you got more ice-based powers, and evil, I believe, more fire-based. Those might be flip-flopped. But the whole thing was that the person who gave you the package in Infamous 1 is future you. You're talking time travel. This is stuff getting weird. He came back in time to give you this package, to give you your powers to take on the Beast, a massive conduit that starts destroying pretty much the whole East Coast in Infamous 2. And that's the whole plot line for that, is you've got to decide whether to stop the Beast, basically, or become a Beast yourself. And officially... you basically either get rid of all the conduits or you make a whole bunch of new ones. And that leads sort of into Infamous Second Son, where conduits are much more widespread. This takes place actually in Seattle, where Infamous and Infamous 2 took place in cities that looked like big American cities and were based around big American cities. Infamous Second Son is straight up Seattle. In Infamous Second Son, you are Delsin Rowe. You come across a smoke conduit when a truck is run off the road, and he escapes, and you touch him, and it turns out that Delsin's true conduit ability is the ability to absorb other conduit abilities. So over the course of the game, you get smoke to start, you get neon, which is probably my favorite power, period, across the whole Infamous franchise. I liked the electricity at first, which is why I went for Infamous to begin with. But when I got to Second Son, and the neon power just allowed you to move so much faster over buildings and over pretty much everything, I learned to really enjoy it. You also gained video powers and concrete powers. And there's good and bad endings towards that one as well. It's all about the choices you make and the things you do. So I really liked that it seemed to really make a difference as far as narrative and how things played out as to whether you went the good route or the bad route. And there were trophies for going good, there were trophies for going evil, and all the destruction you cause. There's different missions depending on which route you take. Sucker Punch Studios is the company that made the Infamous games. And the last thing we heard and the first thing we heard after Infamous Second Son, I believe, is Ghost of Tsushima, which I don't believe is out quite yet. I could be wrong. As of this recording on September 14th, I believe it's still coming. I don't believe it's out quite yet. But haven't heard anything on a new Infamous. And and the other two titles while I'm thinking about it. Infamous 2, the vampire one, which I can't remember right now. It was a real side story in the night of Infamous 2 taking place one of the nights during Infamous 2, and a vampire is resurrected and she wants you to join her. So you get a couple weird like blood vampire-y powers for the course of that game. You get bitten, I think, early on, if I remember right, and you get special vision. You can fly. So it's all right. And then First Light, I never actually got the chance to play, just in the midst of everything. I just never ended up downloading it. But Neon being my favorite power, I was really interested in Fetch's story, which is what this is. First Light is Fetch's story of how she came to be in prison and in the truck with the smoke guy and I believe the video kid. In Infamous, but haven't really heard anything. I did tweet Sucker Punch, trying to see if they'll tweet me back. I doubt it. I'm going to try to do that with all these developers. I don't think I'm going to hear anything, but because sometimes you hear something for a series and it just goes nowhere. So it's curious to see kind of where things stand. But I absolutely love Infamous. I would love to see that continue, show more cities, show more powers, really delve back into this story. The idea of people gaining powers has always been kind of interesting. You look at the world of X-Men, where people are born with powers, and sometimes they're hidden away, sometimes they're loved. And then you look at the world of My Hero Academia, where it's almost completely different, because instead of being shunned and hated, for the most part, people with quirks are loved and they're heroes and good guys, unless they choose to use their quirk for evil. But that's a choice. It's not something that's just, it's not something where generally people are really scared or anything. Sometimes I suppose it probably is, but it's not like X-Men where a mutation is an instant source of fear. It's now this has become the norm in that world. And that's kind of the same thing here is, so long as conduits aren't using their powers for bad things, it's okay. They had a whole organization of concrete conduits that was chasing down Delsin. And in Infamous Second Son. And you're helped by the police if you do good things in the original Infamous, but they try to attack you if you're being bad. So it really all is a matter of perspective and how you are seen. I think it's really cool that it's able to differentiate that much. You know, you can be destructive in things in other games, and it doesn't make a lick of difference. And I look at the Epic Mickey series as well for this sort of thing, which is another one I'm going to tackle later on in this series. 1 and 2 were really interesting, and 3 was supposed to come, but it never did. But I liked still that you could still differentiate between a good Mickey and a bad Mickey, which is weird for a Disney game, for a Mickey game, that you can have a bad Mickey, but it's possible if you use your destructive capabilities, you're thinner the wrong way. And I like that here as well. I like Cole's weapon, the amp. It's not, it's this just blunt clobbering tool, but it's useful for so many things. And I like that things made sense. It was a little frustrating, like in Infamous 1, when you just inadvertently fell into the water, and because you have electricity powers, you just kind of insta-died. But one of my things I remember is also learning to call down a lightning bolt, and the massive lightning bolt and blowing up the gas station near the train tracks kind of towards the end. That's your big kind of finisher. That's one of those things that always sticks in my head, along with one of the big scenes from Second Son. Spoilers, the game's been out a while, but in case anyone hasn't played it yet who wants to, I remember the scene very well where Delsin's brother is killed in Infamous Second Son. Because it's that big turning point for Delsin. So yeah, Infamous, I think it's a great series. I think it deserves to come back. I'm going to post a poll up here in the top right corner. I'm still learning this stuff. And you guys tell me what you think. Does Infamous deserve to come back, or should we just let it stay as it is? Going to cover lots of games during this over the course of this series, hopefully looking into things from PlayStation, from Nintendo, maybe even from some Xbox. I don't do that much Xbox, but there may be some things in there I need to look at. If you have any suggestions, please post them below, and I will try to get to them as I can. But that is lights out on Shock to the Series for Infamous.